Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Ives. Number MB1 is the part number. MB1, and this is a black mounting bracket is what this is. And mounting brackets, you don't run into them very often because their applications are not that common. Even though when their application is called for and required, then you don't do anything without a mounting bracket, that's for sure. And what I mean is they're used in applications where you need to fit two things in the same place that aren't meant to be mounted there at the same time. And that's what a mounting bracket is. So there's a couple of different mounting brackets. MB1, MB2 I think is the other part number, but we'll get to that. And this is what this thing looks like. It's basically a piece of aluminum is what it is. When it's installed, it's going to look like that. You're going to, when you look up at the door, you're going to see this face of the material. This is a mounting bracket that's used, and I'll just read the extended description, then we'll dissect what this is for. Well, before we do that, three finishes. SP28 for aluminum, Spblk for black, USP for prime coat. Okay, this is for 4 3/4 minimum jam depths that have a stop width of greater than 2.5 inch. Or a soffit. Some people call it the soffit. I would call it the soffit. It should be, I think it should be called the soffit, and I will make a quick sketch of what the soffit is. That's the soffit. The stop, I would call this the stop, or the stop face, but that's the stop, okay? It has some dimensions, and let's just touch on those dimensions first. First, 4 inch wide. Sorry. 3 inch deep. A little shy on both on that first dimension. 15/16. I'd say it's a little heavy on that. Now, according to the extended description, what does a mounting bracket do? Allows stop-mounted hardware to be properly installed without damaging the COR coordinator, such as a parallel arm closer or a fire or a non-fire rated surface vertical rod device. Stop-mounted hardware will need to be lowered to compensate for the height of the coordinator and mounting bracket made of aluminum. So what they're saying is, first of all, this is made of aluminum, so it's not going to be something you'd use in a fire-rated application. Because I have that in my mind, if you have a fire-rated opening, you will not use an MB1 or an MB2 at all. They're not appropriate. Where you will use this is when you have a egress capacity that requires one or both leaves of the door to have panic-rated exit hardware. You've obviously got a pair of doors. Let's back up. If you're using this, you have a pair of doors. I can't think why you'd use this without, I can't think of why you'd use it in a single door. If you have a pair of doors, you specifically have a bar-style coordinator. There's a link below this video to a document called product brochure that will allow you to review the COR. The COR is the coordinator from Ives. It is a bar-shaped apparatus that basically goes the entire width of the opening, mounted on the soffit between the stops. So, if you had a pair of 3-foot doors, the actual length of your coordinator is going to be closer to 72 3/4 inch, something in that range. Now, you've got one or two, probably two, parallel arm mounted closers, because you've got a pair of doors, you've got a coordinator because your hardware requires it. Give me a moment. You've got a pair of parallel arm bracket closers. Okay, the parallel arm bracket, in almost all instances, needs to mount exactly where that coordinator is going to mount. You can't run the screws through the coordinator for the parallel arm bracket because you'll destroy the coordinator. So what happens is this mounts into the rabbet of the frame, and the coordinator sneaks right in here. So that what you're doing is you are literally mounting your parallel arm bracket to this plate. Okay? So that you can literally run the screws into the plate. And permit your coordinator to pass through. That's what that's for. Back to egress capacity, you could have one or both doors. No, you're going to have one door. Or maybe not. But you've got certainly an active door that has probably panic-rated exit hardware. The important part is you're going to have an inactive door that probably has automatic flush bolts. You have an astragal applied to the pull side of the active door, which means that you have to have a coordinator so that when doors open, your doors will close, 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 close. The coordinator is going to force the active door to stay ajar until the inactive closes, and then the active can close, which will then fire the automatic flush bolts in the inactive door, permitting the active door to then latch. That's where you're going to need a coordinator when you have something that's preventing the proper latching of doors if they were to be opened in any sequence. So a coordinator forces the opening to close in a sequenced fashion so that they not only close but also latch, and that's where a mounting bracket comes in. There's an image down below this video of an opening that I took in a hotel I was in once upon a time, and it shows exactly how this bracket's going to be mounted, so that's pretty helpful. You'll have to be mindful to not pierce through this material, which appears to be every bit of 5/16 thick, with your mounting screws. Yeah, 5/16. There are two brackets that you'll notice from the link to the product brochure. There's an MB1 and then an MB2. The MB1 is where you have a stop width that is up to 2.5 inch. Pardon me, a soffit dimension. Now, what is that? What is that is that, up to 2.5. If you have, over 2.5 inch, over, because your soffit length is large enough to where you can accommodate this style. If you have a stop width that is, MB1 is for over 2.5. It's a bigger soffit, more common. Up to 2.5 is the MB2, and it's got an extra step in it because you've got a skinnier frame, is what it boils down to. How to calculate that soffit? Well, take your jam depth, deduct your two rabbets, and it's really important to know if you're dealing with equal rabbet or unequal rabbet. Certain manufacturers are equal rabbet, other manufacturers are unequal rabbet. Let's go through both of them. 5 3/4, obviously the most common jam depth. 5.75 minus 1.9375, which would be a 1 in 15/16 rabbet, minus 1.5625, which would be a 1 in 9/16 rabbet on the other side. That would be a 2 1/4 inch soffit. So for a 5 3/4 frame where it's unequal rabbet, 2 1/4 would be the soffit size, and in that sort of instance, you know, you're not going to use the MB1. You're going to use an MB2. Let's take a look and see now if it is a equal rabbet. 5 3/4 minus 1.9375, which is 1 in 15/16, minus 1.9375, which is 1 in 15/16. Now you've got 1 in 7/8, so you've got even a smaller soffit. You get into 8 3/4, it's not going to matter. You're going to need the MB. You're going to need the MB1. If you've got a 4 3/4 frame, you're going to be dealing with for sure an MB2. So if you've got 5 3/4, you're going to be dealing with an MB2. This MB1 tells me that they have a larger than typical jam depth, is what I'm driving at. The rest of that product brochure is handy because it will give you an overview of not only the MB1 and 2, but also the fire-rated versions, which are certainly going to be made of steel, and they're certainly going to be listed, which means that they are permissible to use on fire-rated openings. I don't know that they're labeled, that they will physically have a label on them, but they will certainly be listed, which means under the duress of audit from an inspector or whomever, a fire door assembly inspector, you would be able to have that listing pulled and supplied to the questioning party. Moving further into the catalog, product catalog there, the gravity coordinator is there, which is the coordinator. It's just a gravity style, different video. There's a carry bar that's there, which is a really specific piece of equipment as well. Then it gets into the coordinator information in the last 2 pages that will allow you to review how to order the coordinator a little bit more completely. And that coordinator information is a bit overwhelming, but it's not. You just need to follow the table the way that they've outlined it. You will get fasteners for this, machine screws. They appear to be a truss head style machine screw that are going to go inside of here. You'll have to drill and tap that into your steel frame. And again, non-rated openings. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Ives products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I'm partial to Ives, and I think it's because subconsciously I'm most familiar with their part numbers. It was the first trim and auxiliary company that I was exposed to when I first entered the door hardware industry. Their name is certainly universally accepted and understood in commercial construction for trim and auxiliary hardware, and would suggest that you review their product line. What I like most from them is their line of pivots, their center hung and offset pivots. And the reason I say that is because I've sold bushel loads of pivots, I've installed them, I've prepped doors for them, both metal and wood, and I really like the approach of the installation instructions that Ives has authored for their pivots, because it's very accessible to the person who's never installed a pivot in the past. You can get templates from other manufacturers and you can say, that's, I have no idea what you're talking about. Ives takes a different approach, and so I like their templates and their installation instructions as a result. Any questions on the MB1 or any other Ives product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.